Okay, so it seems like recently two VTubers, Megalodon and LXOX, have been getting a bit of backlash over a couple of tweets they made. Obviously, I'm pretty sure it was around about AX time and Anime Expo and all of this kind of stuff, which is based in LA. And essentially, they talk about their experience with talking to two guys that maybe they weren't so interested in talking to, and they kind of admit that they not led them on, but like kind of just continued talking to them, which made the situation kind of worse for themselves, right? And well, they've been getting a lot of backlash over this. A lot of people have been unhappy with this because they're essentially saying like, why are you complaining if you're the one that's doing the talking here? And well, yeah, this is essentially the tweet. They're saying, me and megalodonvt were waiting for our Uber and two guys tried to rizz us up by talking about the con. I lied and told them we have no idea what the con is for, so they'd stop talking to us. I was rude because I didn't want them flirting with us, but then I felt bad, so I continued talking to them, and they liked it even more. Why do I do this always? Or why do I always do this? Sorry. So yeah, obviously they're essentially saying some guys came up to them, said, hey, you know, blah, 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 about the con, and then they're like, oh, we didn't go to the con, and then continued talking to them despite not wanting to be flirted with. Because yeah, she's saying, why do I always do this? So obviously she's got a problem with just like continuing it on, right? And of course, this then caused some people to get a little bit angry because, it sounds like they're kind of complaining about it whenever it was their own fault for this happening, saying, honestly, I don't blame you for wanting them to back off, but clearly they didn't understand that you weren't interested in any dialogue with them, yet they still continued, which makes it all more creepy. At least nothing bad happened. Saying, my question is, why are you guys talking about the con to rizz girls? What made you think it? Made them think you were into that? And obviously, yeah, those are the ones supporting them, of course. And yeah, I think that's fair enough. So honestly, I don't blame you for wanting to back off. Said she literally said she lied to them and then felt bad and continued the conversation. They would have walked off if she hadn't continued talking, but they're creepy. This is why men won't take chances anymore. So I didn't want to talk to someone, so I continued the conversation on my own free will, and I'm admitting this. Gosh, what creeps? They're so creepy. Gosh. So yeah, obviously a lot of people, kind of saying like, hey, I don't think they're creeps because, of course, the conversation continued on. And again, I don't think I would class them as creeps or anything like that. I think that, honestly, yes, maybe they are guys that were, trying to be a little bit flirty with them and they weren't too comfortable with that. But the thing is, right, even they acknowledge in this tweet that, they kind of continued the conversation on themselves, right? And, these guys probably, were a little bit not confused, but they thought that they enjoyed the conversation or whatever because they kept on talking to them, right? Usually, a guy would understand, obviously most guys would understand that, oh, yeah, she doesn't want to talk to me. Okay, that's fine. I'll just move on, right? But she continued to talk to them and they were like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And then they continued to talk, right? So whenever you continue a conversation, they're going to continue the conversation and think nothing is wrong, right? If you ignore them and try to get away from them, then obviously, yes, then that is like, if they continue to try to talk to you, that is creepy, right? But the thing is, they try to talk to them. They continue to talk to them. So I think that is the kind of difference that people are making here. Because, yeah, and even L in this tweet says, why do I always do this? Obviously acknowledging the fact that, it was their own fault that this conversation kind of continued, right? Because, again, I don't think it is, it is kind of like their fault for continuing the conversation, right? I'm saying, not sure about the context since I wasn't there, but most people back off if you just say you aren't interested. I get it's a bit of a thing to do, but us men aren't mind readers, and whenever it comes to subtle signals, not all of us can pick it up. Maybe it's because you're protecting yourself and Mega from them. I know men can be very off or would do something reckless, but you just have to look at which men are the good ones, which one are the bad ones. And Jesus Christ, can you people grow a spine in the 21st century and just say not interested? I think you actually seem insufferable from this tweet. Don't want to talk to someone, so just lie that, oh, look, I'm a bigger person, so talk and say me. And this is why men don't want to talk to women anymore. Why put yourself out there if no one's going to be honest with you? Saying, should we remind you when you talked about you complaining about guys not tolerating you because of your job? If men didn't make you money, you wouldn't even look at them. You are a jerk for leading people on. So yeah, obviously it is pretty interesting. And then this tweet came out which was another one saying they were LA locals, so you just can't straight up say no to the guys in LA. You never know what they're going to do. If you don't understand that, then I don't know what to say. And I think that's understandable, right? Saying like no straight up to someone sometimes can escalate a situation, which obviously is a very harsh reality, right? You know, it should be that way, but of course it is just that way. So again, it's one of those things where, yes, you know, you probably can't say no as easily, but also probably don't continue the conversation on if you don't want them to talk to you, right? Because there's one thing of saying not interested, and there's one thing of ignoring them, and there's also another thing of continuing the conversation on with them, right? So again, I definitely do think that is something else. People saying, as an LA local, this is the most made up shit I've ever heard in my life. So some people saying that just doesn't happen in LA, but you know, that I don't know. I don't live in LA, so I can't tell you. So this is unfortunately it's very true. You guys navigated an uncomfortable situation. I'm happy it's just now a weird story that you guys could look back on. Saying, what does them being LA locals have to do with being unable to reject them? Do LA locals hold you hostage? So yeah, obviously some people being confused about what they meant by LA locals. Obviously Proctor saying being racist now, which again, I don't know if that's racist or not, but yeah, interesting, right? And of course, a lot of people have been responding to the original tweet saying, lol, Lamau, say, just say not interested. They get paid to take you from one place to another in a safe and timely manner. Again, I don't know if, no, it wasn't the Uber driver themselves. It was some guys while they were waiting for the Uber. So that's just to clear that up. I don't think it was the Uber driver. It was the people, you know, they were waiting on the sidewalk or whatever for the Uber driver, and some guys just like approached them, right? And obviously, yeah, these are the same comments we just read, saying what a disgrace of society when girls don't feel safe, saying no, to not risk the grown toddlers throwing a tantrum. These things anger me so much. Even my sister has to deal with it. Said she didn't say no. That's the issue here. Then continued to talk to them, and look what happened. Nothing, right? And then obviously Megalodon, you know, then posted this after all of this had gone on, saying, I'm getting off of Twitter. Why are people so mean and unwilling to be understanding? So yeah, obviously that's, I'm pretty sure in reference to that original post, at least a lot of people were saying. And yeah, I think it's one of these things where it's kind of like, yes, it's one of these situations where, I don't know, it's like they continued on the conversation. So if they got mad about it or whatever, I think, you know, you shouldn't really get mad if you continued the conversation yourself. But also, I do think at the same time, you know, it's understandable that it's hard to say no and things like that. And also, at the same time, they do acknowledge their own flaws in continuing to talk to them by saying, why do I always do this, right? So that's also something else, right? They're not just complaining and saying, you know, why do guys do this? They're very, you know, acknowledgeable about, like, it's their fault that, you know, the conversation continued because she was the one who continued the conversation, right? So I think that is fair enough. And yeah, I think that is kind of the whole thing, right? Also, by the way, if you guys are still here, use the hype button below. It just helps. So yeah, literally just below, just click it, you know, use the hype points, and yeah, it's great. Anyways, saying the angry responses are sad. The why do I always do this at the end is pretty much an explicit admission that she knows she handled it poorly. Neither she nor the guys actually did anything wrong. Awkward people have had an awkward interaction in the immediate vicinity of a nerd convention. This is the most vanilla shit ever. Then yeah, and people after that were more bashing the Valoron person's statement after that, saying it was creepy. If that was the end of it, fine. XOX34 for some reason then had to make a quote tweet saying it's LA people, so it was dangerous to say no when we went from awkward interaction to accusation. Mega then also just had to go in saying, why don't people understand? If both would have just not made the new tweets, I'd agree, but they couldn't help themselves. It's not really drama in the end. They were being dumb though, saying, shh, out here with your truth and logic. This is the internet. Saying this is the why talk about the con tweet is so dumb, because it's a shared interest that gives an opportunity to make a conversation. I wasn't interested, so I continued talking because I felt bad. It's not the best story to share. They're not in the wrong for rejecting people, but the strategy isn't the best. Not sure about scary LA locals going to anime cons. Saying this is the most nothing burger I've ever seen. Someone sharing their story about screwing things up and admit that they screw up is nothing new. Somehow this is becoming a drama. man, nowadays people just want to vent out their frustrations. Huh, understandable. And yeah, I don't think this is necessarily an accusation towards the guys that, you know, hit on them or anything like that. I think this is more so just like her being like, you know, I was screwed up in an awkward situation. And I think that's a fair enough kind of thing to talk about. I think it's more so the comments from other people talking about the fact like of saying it was creepy, like this one, for example, which was kind of like angering people. And also the quote retweet I think they made saying it was creepy. Yeah, this this one here saying, honestly, I don't blame you for wanting to back off. They clearly didn't understand that you weren't interested with them. Yes, then they still continued, which makes it even more creepy. Which again, I don't think she didn't make it clearly obvious that you weren't interested. Because obviously they continue to talk to them, right? And that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Obviously, you know, she clearly didn't want to interact with them, but just kind of got caught up in an awkward situation that a lot of people get caught up in. Every now and again, she's just kind of sharing that. It's just some people, I think, reaction saying that it's creepy and that the guys are like bad or anything for this. I don't think they are bad. I think everyone kind of just screwed up, right? You know, so again, you know, it's one of those things of, you know, what if, right? What if she actually did tell them they weren't interested? Would have they backed off? Maybe, you know, maybe they could have been just nice guys and they would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough, and just backed off. Maybe they wouldn't have been as well. That's also another what if, right? But, you know, the situation is how it is. It ended quite awkwardly, and that's about it, right? And people were getting mad about this. And obviously, Megalodon, yeah, is getting off of Twitter for a little bit. So, yeah. I mean, that's essentially all there is for this situation. If you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to GameSubs, use my code Kazza, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.